We have some breaking news here on Steelers Talk as the Pittsburgh Steelers are signing wide receiver Marquez Valdes-Scantling in free agency here to add to the Steelers wide receiver room. Is this just one move of multiple moves to come before the NFL trade deadline, or is this the answer for Omar Khan, Mike Tomlin, and the Pittsburgh Steelers at the wide receiver position? Going to be breaking it down today here on Steelers Talk. This is why you subscribe to the channel here at Steelers Talk, guys. We provide you guys in-depth breaking news coverage every time the Steelers make a big move, like a wide receiver signing or maybe a trade coming up before the NFL trade deadline. When and if those moves happen, we're going to get you guys breaking news coverage on this channel. So make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already to never miss a big move from the con artist. So let's get into it, man. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, officially a Pittsburgh Steeler, reuniting with his former quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, who is really good friends with. They throw with each other in the offseason, even when he's playing for different teams with other star quarterbacks. He would always make time to come throw with Rodgers in Malibu. He's 31 years old, so he's on the other side of 30, but obviously he's got kind of the size and speed profile that the Steelers like. 6'4", 206 pounds, and yes, he still has his speed with him. Now, he was released by San Francisco after suffering an apparent calf injury, but he was placed on IR once some of their receivers there in San Fran were getting healthy, and I kind of question how serious that calf injury really is. I think that was almost kind of an excuse just to stash him on IR, and then honestly, it wouldn't surprise me at all if MVS went to the Niners brass and said, hey, if you don't have any plans for me, I'd appreciate it if you just let me go, which is what they did. And then MVS has now gone to the other team that was interested in him back when Seattle released him before the season started, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and now he reunites with Aaron Rodgers. You guys can take a look here at what MVS did throughout his time in Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers, and he had some very productive seasons. He was one of the best deep threats in the National Football League, especially during that 2020 season where he averaged over 20 yards per reception and had 6 touchdowns for 690 total yards. So he was really somebody that was that designated deep threat that took the top off the defense in that Green Bay Packers scheme. And then just last year in 2024, in case you think he's not capable of putting up that kind of production anymore, with the New Orleans Saints, with Derek Carr and Spencer Rattler and all the motley crew quarterbacks they had going on there in New Orleans, he had 19 catches for 411 yards with 4 touchdowns. So that is a pretty decent amount of production right there for MVS. He still showed off his ability to win deep down the field as a deep threat. He showed off those wheels that, yes, he still has in his back pocket. You guys can take a look here at what his prorated 2024 stats would have been, prorated over a 17-game schedule. He played 8 games with the New Orleans Saints, and if you would have taken his numbers over that 8-game stretch over the course of a 17-game schedule, he would have had 36 catches for over 800 yards. That's more than enough for a wide receiver 2 in the National Football League, with over 22 yards per reception and 9 touchdowns. And if Marquez Valdes-Scantling put up that kind of production on a weekly basis here in Pittsburgh, I think people would certainly be happy with that. Not to say that that's the player that we're necessarily going to be getting. The Steelers like to definitely spread the football around. I don't think MVS is coming in immediately as this team's number 2 receiver. This team does have some receivers in their wide receiver room that they like right now, but I certainly think Marquez Valdes-Scantling is the guy that they feel like is going to be that depth piece, that deep threat in case somebody gets injured in that kind of top 3 trio here in Pittsburgh. That MVS can come in with experience with Rodgers, with that deep threat ability and that speed to be able to keep this offense afloat at the wide receiver position if, God forbid, one of their starting receivers goes down with an injury. So let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. What is your one-word reaction to this signing? Let me know down there in the comment section. For today's pinned question, just a second here, I'm going to let you guys know about a great opportunity to get a great piece of Steelers apparel. While I tell you about that opportunity, make sure you get down there in the comment section. Let me know your one-word reaction to the Steelers signing MVS. And the guy that will be throwing the ball to Marquez Valdes-Scantling is none other than Aaron Rodgers. And you guys can get his jersey from our friends right now and use our link. Go to chatsports.com/AR8. That link is down there in the comments and description of today's show. If you guys want to get, the throwbacks that the Pittsburgh Steelers just wore. If you want to wear, the classic home black or the classic away white, we've got all those colorways on our website. Just use our link, chatsports.com/AR8. If you use that link and you make a purchase of an Aaron Rodgers jersey, we get part of the proceeds from that purchase. So not only do you get a brand new Aaron Rodgers jersey, officially licensed by the National Football League, by the way, but also we get a portion of those proceeds and you help out our channel. So we greatly appreciate your guys' support. Again, that link is down there in the comments and description of today's show, chatsports.com/ARA. Now, guys, I know that there's probably a lot of people out there that are unhappy about this, and personally, I would have wanted somebody with a little bit more panache, a little bit more of a bigger name. But don't say I didn't warn you about this, guys. I got crucified on Twitter when I posted this after the San Francisco 49ers released MVS back on October 18th. When and if he gets healthy, expect the Steelers to be interested in Marquez Valdes-Scantling. They showed interest in him before he signed with San Francisco to the point where Aaron Rodgers himself was apparently actively recruiting MVS to come to Pittsburgh. And the replies on that post was, you're an idiot. No way the Steelers are going to get MVS. They're going to go get Jacoby Myers or Chris Olave, one of these other guys. And frankly, I kind of still hope the Steelers do make a move for one of those guys, in the back of my mind. But, when you think about it, this move does have Steelers written all over it, all right, in terms of, the Mike Williams trade last year, bringing in somebody that wasn't a true number 2 wide receiver as their midseason wide receiver addition. This move, I would say, is certainly in that vein of somebody that's past their prime, somebody that's more of a depth piece at this point, but can still be a deep threat, and whose skill set fits with the current quarterback here at the Pittsburgh Steelers. And there's some very specific reasons that make this move make sense for the Pittsburgh Steelers and why this move makes sense. Number one, he is the caliber of wide receiver that the Pittsburgh Steelers are looking for, all right? And whether you agree with it or not, the Pittsburgh Steelers do believe in Calvin Austin III and Roman Wilson. They have been telling you that for months on end at this point, but Steelers fans don't want to listen. And, time and time again, they continue to show you that, yes, they believe Calvin Austin III is this team's legitimate number 2 wide receiver. Yes, they believe Roman Wilson is going to be a contributor for this team down the road and in the present as this team's number 3 receiver. And frankly, they paired really well with DK Metcalf in this last week's game versus the Green Bay Packers, where DK had 5 catches, but then Calvin and Roman each had 4 apiece. Roman actually led the group in receiving yards last week, had multiple downfield receptions, and he got his first career touchdown. And Roman has had some really nice plays over the last 3 weeks in particular as he's gotten more and more playing time. So Calvin and Roman have certainly, expanded their roles in this offense over the years. And, it seems like this offense that wants to prioritize, moving the football around, distributing it to a lot of different players. Rodgers likes to, determine who he's throwing the ball to based on coverage, not necessarily on matchups. And because of that, I think they really like Calvin and Roman as faster players. In Roman's case, has some good hands. Calvin's a really good route runner, and I think they like the complementary skill sets in this group right now. And you also have to remember that the Pittsburgh Steelers use their tight ends as well. They play Jonnu Smith a lot. They play Pat Freiermuth a lot. They paid them a lot of money over the last 2 seasons. Darnell Washington plays a lot in this offense. When Isaac Seumalo is healthy, Spencer Anderson plays tight end in this offense a lot. So they've got a lot of different mouths to feed in this offense. And if you would have added a Chris Olave who's used to number 1 wide receiver targets, how happy would he really have been here with the Pittsburgh Steelers? You have to think about that kind of stuff, because these are human beings. This isn't necessarily Madden. These players have expectations as to what kind of workload they're going to be getting, and they have personalities and all these different things, and you have to take that into account when it comes to roster construction. And I think right now, with the fact that the Steelers that they like Calvin and they like Roman, they wanted somebody that could come in and be a starter if somebody got injured, but not somebody that's going to come in and usurp those guys as starting players in this offense. But also it fits the mold of what Pittsburgh is looking for, okay? And what I mean by that is that according to Ian Rappaport, right, what was the Steelers looking for? They were looking for a speedy, deep threat that could take the top off the defense. And that is exactly what they're getting here with MVS. Now, he's not the most refined route runner. He doesn't have the best hands in the world. He certainly has his shortcomings, all right? No question about that. But in terms of just winning deep, giving Rodgers an opportunity to throw the ball deep, and if teams want to play aggressively and play the underneath stuff and play the intermediate stuff, and they don't want to, and they want to leave the deep part of the field open, MVS is going to burn them. And Aaron Rodgers has enough chemistry and enough confidence in MVS to be able to throw that ball up there, and MVS is going to find a spot there to go and catch the football. So if DK Metcalf gets injured, then he can come in and play X. He's big enough to do that, but he's also fast enough to play Z if Calvin Austin and Roman Wilson, one of those two, ends up going down. But then also establish chemistry with Aaron Rodgers. This is a big thing here because especially if you're adding a receiver in the middle of the season, adding somebody that's never worked with Aaron Rodgers before might be a bit hairy because if you know anything about Rodgers, he's got his own kind of language. He's got these checks. He's got these kind of hand signals that he likes to deploy before the snap, and MVS is already aware of pretty much all of those, okay? So, there's not going to be any learning curve there for MVS. He's going to be able to come in, and if they want him to play right away, my guess is he's going to be able to, pick up Rodgers' ease and be able to develop that chemistry back up with A-Rod pretty quickly. Also, he won a Super Bowl with the Kansas City Chiefs. He scored touchdowns in Super Bowls. So, this is somebody that's been a supplementary secondary wide receiver piece as a depth wide receiver on a Super Bowl winning football team. And he's shown up in the biggest moments in Super Bowls, in playoff games. He's caught touchdown passes in those big moments, and I'm sure that's important for a Steelers team that wants to try and win now. And then also, and this is really important here, he doesn't cost a draft pick, and this is very important to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And listen, man, if I were Omar Khan and I had 12 draft picks and I was trying to win now, I probably would use one of those draft picks to go get a Jacoby Myers or, a Rashid Shaheed or maybe a Calvin Ridley, whoever was available at the trade deadline, and try to get a bigger name. But the Steelers are really, really adamant on maximizing their draft potential next year and having as many picks as possible and as many chances at the dartboard as possible in next year's NFL draft, especially because next year's draft is in Pittsburgh and they want to, they want fans to have a lot of fun with these 12 draft picks that they have currently accumulated. So my guess here, guys, is that Pittsburgh doesn't make another move at wide receiver. All right. I think that this is the move that they are going to fill out their wide receiver room with. They feel like MVS is a guy with chemistry with Rodgers, somebody that can play X or Z depending on what injuries you get down the stretch here at the wide receiver position. Obviously, he can't replace DK Metcalf and his production or anything like that, but if he goes down, he is big enough to be able to theoretically play X in this offense. And then, if Calvin goes down or if Roman goes down, MVS can come in and be that third starting wide receiver that has played secondary role on a Super Bowl winning team before, all these different things. And the fact that he doesn't cost a draft pick to acquire, I think is what really made him attractive to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I think they like Calvin Austin III. I think they like Roman Wilson, and I think they like MVS for the role they're bringing him in to play here. So would I have rather gone out and got a bigger name? Absolutely. But I tried telling you guys that this was going to be the move, and that's why you click that subscribe button and join Steelers Talk. Now sound off for me down there in the comment section. Grade the signing of MVS down there in the comment section. Give me an A, B, C, D, or F. For me, guys, I probably got to give it like a C or a C minus. I would have loved Jacoby Myers. I would have loved Juwan Jennings. I would have loved Calvin Ridley, somebody with a bigger name, somebody that's a little bit more established and not as maybe quote-unquote washed as MVS is. But it is what it is. And, I do like Calvin and I do like Roman. And I'm excited to see what those guys can do down the stretch. And, hey, who knows? Maybe that chemistry with Aaron Rodgers can ignite a little bit of magic left in MVS. That'll be it for today's breaking news edition of Steelers Talk. Thank you guys so much for joining us here on today's show. We'll have more Steelers coverage for you guys coming up here shortly. Until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers.